So hello, my name's Rob and this is Cattle Rabbit Scale Model Studios, and in this video it's all about bases. Games Workshop bases in particular, they have a very unique style on how they base their miniatures. You see it all the time on the box art and the web store. These are the ones I mean here. This one from Space Marines all the way through to Space Lizards. There's a very generic base. They're quite nice to make. I like a scenic base, but there's something quite nice and simple and clean looking about these. They're really easy to do. They're not the quickest, but they do look pretty good. So let's get started. So I really like these bases. They're very clean looking. They're very easy to do. I'm going to be showing you how I'm going to do it. I've been painting up a Curse Blood from the Skurgan True Blades from Warcry. I really like this model, and I thought, do you know what, I'm not going to theme them because I didn't do that with my other ones. I'm going to do it the other way. So I'm going to use this model as an example, and the first one we are going to do, I'm going to show you two ways of doing these. You can either have the kind of texture around the foot, or you can have the miniature sitting on top of it. I'm going to show you how to do that both ways. If you want it sitting around the foot, best thing to do is get your model and then just get a pencil and just mark out where the contact points are on your figure. As you can see here, see mine standing on a little bit of a small kind of tactical rock, and what we're going to try and do, this is just to let us know where we can put basing material. Once again, if you want your model to just sit on top of them, you don't need to worry about this. I'm going to have mine sitting on top of it. It looks fine, you know, but just in case you wanted to, I thought I would cover both sides of it. The next thing we're going to need to do is we need a texture to put on top of this. Now I really like this stuff. This is fine buff from Woodland Scenics. This is the same type of stuff they use model railways. My biggest problem when you use sand on bases, obviously sand is sand to us because we are human, we are big. Whereas on a miniature, it doesn't scale very well. This stuff I find scales really well with 28 to 32mm wargaming. I keep it in a big jar. I've used this loads. It's a really good product, and a bag will last you absolute ages. Now, to adhere your texture, you can use something like this, which is basing glue, PVA. For this video, I am going to use super glue as it dries really quickly. For the purpose of the video, it's perfect. However, if you're knocking up a lot of these, I would recommend doing PVA. And just do like a bit of a production line, leave them overnight, jobs are good on the next day, and then you can just crack on with the next steps. So what I'm going to do here though, super glue, and once again this cost me like £1 from my local discount store. I'm just going to get my super glue and I'm going to start squeezing it out onto the base. Once again, I'm going to be really careful not to go over the lines where I've marked where the contact points are going to be, as obviously I'm going to have a model there. Once that's done, I'm just going to use, this is like a broken coffee stirrer with one end kind of cut flat. I'm just going to kind of agitate the glue into all the gaps. Really easy, just take your time with it, making sure you go up to that line that you've marked out. Now that's done, obviously you can see here, I've got it all kind of like how I want it and where I want it. And all we're going to do, we're going to get a good pinch of this fine buff from Woodland Scenics. And as you enjoy the view of the back of my hand here, as my camera focuses on that, it doesn't take long to dry at all, but I would recommend really cake the base in this stuff. Give it a good couple of pats down like I'm doing, and just leave it 30 seconds, it'll be job done. Then, I think I left this for about a minute. All you're going to do is turn it upside down, really clamp it and give it a good couple of hard flicks on the back. Anything that's going to come off is going to come off now. And what you can actually see here is everything's kind of dried really quickly. If you want to just pick any bits off of the edge, I'm doing that really gently with my fingers just there. Once again, I'm checking the miniature. If you are going to carry on with this method, what you'll need to do now is just put a little bit of super glue just where the contact points are and just backfill it with some of the buff again. Can be really time consuming to do. That's why I don't recommend doing it this way, but obviously each their own. But the next thing I am going to do, I'm going to pick out a very nice rock. These are just some that I actually got from a local beach. They've all been washed in boiling water, and I'm just going to pick one out and I'm just going to pop it on. I find smaller stones work best. Obviously, once again, I think the reason why these work so well is because they're very considerate to the perspective of the miniature, as opposed to just normal size stuff to us glued onto a base, which sometimes can look a little bit odd. Again, you could probably glue the rock on first if you wanted to. I'm just using a bit of super glue. It doesn't really make much difference. I'm going to sit mine on top of it, don't worry. And then this is what I mean about the backfilling stage for the actual texture, the buff, because what we're going to need to do is just kind of get that. If you wanted to glue him on now, then do that and then backfill with the buff so you've got no gaps. However, I'm just going to fill all these gaps up now because I'm just going to have solid texture and I'm just going to sit them on top. You'll see what I mean at the end of the video. It doesn't look out of place or anything like that. I think I put some pictures up on my community tab as well. Really not much to it, and I don't actually believe it's that worth the effort. So everything's now textured. Again, I'm always constantly checking my miniature and how it sits and where everything is. I find taking your time with these, because they're very clean looking, really cool. Trench Brown by the Colour Forge. If you don't have this and you obviously don't want to follow this colour side of things, then don't worry, I'm just going to prime mine in this because it's basically Steel Legion Drab, which is most of the legwork. Just give it a good spray, wait for it to dry, and then I'm going to come in with some Agraxur shade and I'm going to paint this on all over the base. Again, if you are doing different colours, depends what you're going for, but the same method of making these bases are exactly the same, so don't worry. Once the Agraxur shade is dry, I'm going to get a dry brush and I'm going to get some Karak stone. Obviously, I'm trying to replicate the colours that Games Workshop use here, so this is my interpretation of it. Now, if you don't dry brush, you don't know what dry brushing is, basically get some paint on your brush. These flatter ones, makeup brushes, are a great proxy for dry brushes. Get a bit of tissue, and all we're going to do is we're going to remove all the excess paint until obviously all the paint is dry, thus the dry brush. And flick it back and forth, and you'll see you'll slowly build up that colour. Don't worry if it doesn't seem like there's much paint on your dry brush, believe me, there is. Don't worry, and just build up that colour nice and gradually. As you can see here, it's now starting to come together and you kind of get the idea. We are then going to repeat this process with Ushabti Bone. Once again, all I'm going to do is I'm going to get my dry brush, I'm going to remove any excess, and I'm just going to work over the top of the base. That's the beauty of this buff stuff as well, is it captures the texture really well, and it gives you that great kind of like effect and look that the Games Workshop ones have. So there you can see, that's all the texture bit done. We've got a really nice kind of colour to it. Next I am going to paint my rock. For that I'm going to be using some Mechanica Standard Grey, and I'm just going to give it some highlights with Dawnstone. Nothing too fancy here, it's just a rock. So one thing I will say is I'm going to take my paint straight from the pot. Don't worry, obviously it's just going to add a little bit of extra texture. Just work it into the rock, and don't try not to think too much about it. A bit of different texture will be good, but if you wanted to thin your paints down, by all means do so. I don't always believe you have to, but I'm just going to make sure it's got a good coverage. So my rock's done. As you can see here, it's just got a little bit of a highlight. Nothing too fancy, really simple. The aim of these bases is simplicity. And then the next thing we're going to look at is tufts. Now, there's loads available. I use these are from the Army Painter. These are their Battlefield tufts. There's so many different colours out there. I do find slightly yellower, darker ones work really well with these bases, because what we are going to do, we're going to add some of this. This is Battlefield Field Grass from the Army Painter. It's got a really good mix of colours in. I've used this a lot. I've had this for a while now. It just gives a really good kind of variation, which is great for an all-in-one Battlefield kind of grass. Here I'm going to be using some basing glue, however PVA, exactly the same stuff, don't worry. And all I'm going to do is, once again, I'm going to just put my miniature on, because I don't want to be sticking him over clumps of grass. I want the grass to just be dotted around. So I'm just checking, and I do take a couple of seconds just to work out where, you know, I've got a little bit of space to work. I try not to overthink this stage, because you want it to look kind of natural, but also this base has to serve a bit of a purpose. So I tend to just take a little bit of time and just look at where I can put stuff. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to get some PVA or my basing stuff, and I'm just going to dot it onto my base. Again, I'm trying not to think too much. I'm going to put some by the rock. I'm going to put some little bits just kind of dotted at the front, as I know there isn't anything going to be there. If you do want to add things like skulls, by all means just do it now as well. And then I'm going to get a pinch of this stuff. As you can see here, it's got a really, really lovely bit of variation, this grass, and it's really nice and bright. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to literally just dab it on to the glue. You can kind of just push it down with your finger, and then what I like to do is after about 10 seconds or so, you can actually get your finger and almost like brush the fibres upwards, like you're almost stroking it, and it'll just make everything stand up the correct way. Then literally, I mean, that was done in real time. Give it a couple of flicks. Again, be really, really aggressive with these. Anything that's going to come off is going to come off now, don't worry. And there we go. We see that we've got a little bit of, you know, colour, and that's what I think really brings these to life. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to add some tufts, and I'm going to go around the rim with some XV88, which is a really, really nice kind of like orangey brown. This is a good example. Here's one of my gorges, which I've done in exactly the same method. You know, it's really nice, really clean, and that's really about it. So let's have a look at it. So there it is. That is our base done. So you can see that I've added the tuft, just helps break it up a little bit. I didn't have any smaller tufts, otherwise I would have probably added a couple. And then you've got obviously the little rock. You can add as much of these or as little of these as you want. And then when our guy sits on it, it's going to look something like that. Again, it's a really nice way to frame your miniatures, because effectively that's what basing is. It's a frame for your miniature. So that's why I always like to take a little bit of time and just make sure that bases always look, you know, good. Once again, I like these. I like making bases and things like that. However, I think sometimes it's nice to just strip something back, have it uniform across the board, nice and simple. They're not quick, but they do look very, very nice. And that's my interpretation of the Games Workshop base. If you do anything differently and you've tried this before, do let me know below. But that's really it for me in this video. I'll see you all next time. God bless and take care.